2 weeks ago, I installed a doorbell camera. It wasn't anything fancy, just a cheap unit from Amazon that promised a bit of extra security. I figured it'd be useful for catching porch pirates or keeping an eye on my front door when I was away. I live alone in a quiet suburban neighborhood, a place where the nights are still and every shadow seems to have a secret. I used to believe nothing ever happened here. That was before the alerts began. The first alert came at 1:47 a.m. Motion detected at front door. I was half asleep when my phone buzzed. Groggy and reluctant to leave my warm bed, I opened the camera app expecting to see a stray cat or perhaps a car rolling by under the dim glow of a streetlight. But when the feed appeared, my porch was empty. The screen showed my driveway bathed in a pale, uncertain light. Nothing out of the ordinary, just the quiet of the night. I convinced myself it was a sensor glitch, a random bug in the system. I closed the app and drifted back into sleep, unaware that something sinister was beginning to unfold. The next night, the alert came again. 3:12 a.m. Motion detected at front door. This time, my pulse quickened as I opened the app. Once more, the feed revealed an empty porch. Yet, there was an inexplicable change in the atmosphere. The shadows seemed to have deepened, stretching out like dark, silent fingers. The familiar glow of the streetlight appeared feeble, as though it were fighting an unseen presence trying to engulf it. A chill crept over me, a feeling I couldn't dismiss as mere paranoia. Despite my unease, I shrugged it off, attributing it to a trick of the light. But the feeling of being watched lingered long after I shut the app. Then I made a mistake. Compelled by a mix of dread and curiosity, I reviewed the saved footage from that eerie night. For just a split second, my eyes caught something, a shape lurking just outside the camera's limited view. It was a tall, indistinct figure standing motionless at the edge of the frame, as if it were waiting for something. The figure did not move, walk, or fade away. It simply watched. A cold, sinking feeling overwhelmed me. I told myself it was nothing more than a camera glitch, a quirk of technology. In a desperate bid to erase the unease, I deleted the footage and tried to forget, hoping the night would return to its usual quiet. But the next night and the one after that, the phenomenon repeated itself, each time more unnerving than before. Every night at precisely 1:47 a.m., 3:12 a.m., and later at 4:56 a.m., my phone buzzed with the same message. Every instance captured a single fleeting frame, a shadowy figure standing in the distance, each time positioned just a little closer to my doorstep. It felt as if the presence was slowly encroaching upon my space, inching its way from the periphery of my vision to right at my door. I reached a breaking point. After a week of these unnerving events, I had no choice but to call the police. I needed someone to confirm that I wasn't descending into madness. An officer arrived, his face betraying skepticism as he reviewed the footage. "It could be a camera malfunction," he said with a dismissive tone. "Or maybe someone's playing a prank. We'll patrol the area tonight." He walked around my yard with his flashlight, its beams slicing through the darkness, scanning the street and the surrounding houses. But he found nothing. No sign of an intruder or any unusual activity. Even so, a small part of me felt a fleeting sense of relief knowing that someone else was keeping an eye out. I managed to sleep that night, though fitfully, But just as I began to relax, another alert shattered the fragile calm. 4:03 a.m. Motion detected at front door. This time, dread gripped me as I opened the app. The feed now showed the figure at the very foot of my driveway, and in a moment that froze my blood, I saw its face, or rather, what should have been its face. The features were disturbingly perfect, too smooth, too symmetrical, reminiscent of a mannequin almost given life but falling short of being human. My hand flew to my mouth as I slammed the phone down. Panic surged through me, and I immediately dialed 911 once more. Within minutes, the police were back, inspecting the area, scrutinizing the footage, and interrogating me with questions. One officer, however, lingered on my front door. His eyes fell on the doorknob. "Did you touch your doorknob recently?" he inquired cautiously. "No," I replied, confused. He pointed. My doorknob was inexplicably wet, as though someone had gripped it for an unnaturally long time. The sight sent another shiver down my spine. That night, sleep became an impossibility. The following day, fear and exhaustion compelled me to take the day off. I stayed inside with the blinds drawn, isolating myself from the world outside. I repeatedly checked the footage, hoping for normalcy, but the day passed with no new alerts or occurrences. Yet, the silence was deceptive. At exactly midnight, my phone buzzed again. I rushed to the app, only to find that the camera feed was completely black. It wasn't offline or frozen. It was as if something was physically covering the lens. My stomach churned. I grabbed the nearest kitchen knife, its handle cold and reassuringly solid, and crept toward the front door, every nerve screaming with dread. Then a knock echoed from the door. It was soft, deliberate, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the quiet night. I froze, too terrified to breathe. Another knock followed, more insistent this time. My hands trembled as I checked the phone again. The feed was still pitch black. The microphone, however, was active. With a quivering voice, I tapped the audio button and whispered, "Who's there?" There was nothing but a heavy silence that lasted an agonizing moment. Then, in the most haunting, ethereal whisper I had ever heard, a voice said, "I know you see me." The words reverberated in my ears, sending a shockwave of terror through my entire body. I dropped the phone, its impact echoing in the stillness, and sank to the floor with the knife clutched in my shaking hand. For the next 6 excruciating hours, I sat in a state of paralyzing fear, every sound and shadow magnified by my racing heart, waiting for the sun to finally rise and dispel the night. Dawn eventually crept in, but the terror had not receded. I mustered the courage to check the footage again, half expecting to find nothing, half dreading what new horror it might reveal. Initially, the recordings appeared normal, until I scrutinized the motion log. There, among the familiar alerts, was a new timestamp, 3:47 a.m. But instead of the usual motion detected at front door, the log simply read, "Face recognized." My blood ran ice cold. I had never enabled facial recognition on my device. With trembling fingers, I tapped the notification. The app glitched and froze, and the screen flickered wildly before, just for a brief, horrifying second. It flashed an image. The image wasn't of my porch or the empty street. It was of me. There I was, sound asleep in my bed, captured in that moment of vulnerability. The realization that someone, or something, had observed me without my knowledge was too much to bear. In a surge of panic, I hurled the phone across the room. My heart pounded like a drum as I raced to the front door, forcibly yanking the camera from its mount and unplugging it. But even as I did so, the app remained open on my phone. The live feed persisted, as if the camera were still recording some unseen presence. I tried every method I could think of, deleting the app, resetting my phone, even shutting off the Wi-Fi. But nothing worked. The feed stayed on, mocking my attempts to regain control. And then, as if the nightmare wasn't already unbearable, another alert came in. Motion detected. This time, it wasn't at the front door. It was somewhere inside the house. I stood frozen, the weight of dread crushing me as the realization hit. Whatever was watching me had somehow infiltrated my sanctuary. My heart raced and my mind screamed that there was no escape. The darkness inside and out had converged into one inescapable terror, leaving me with the chilling knowledge that I was not alone.